There are wounds that bleed in silence. Wounds you don't even know you carry, because the world taught you how to wear them like armor. How many betrayals have you buried under a smile? How many nights did you lie awake, stitching invisible cuts across your heart, telling yourself it wasn't that bad? How many times did you convince yourself that pain was just the price of being alive? The truth is brutal. You didn't just survive pain. You adapted to it. You built a life around it. But adaptation is not healing. It is camouflage. And beneath that camouflage, the old wounds still whisper. They shape your relationships. They influence your choices. They mold your silence. Every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you accept less than you deserve, every time you betray yourself for the sake of peace, it is not because you are weak. It is because somewhere, long ago, pain rewired your soul. It taught you that safety meant being small, that love meant enduring, that belonging meant bending. And so you learned to smile while bleeding, to say, "I'm fine," while crumbling inside, to call survival strength, even when it was slowly killing you. But survival is not freedom. And strength is not measured by how much you can endure without breaking. Strength, real strength, is measured by how deeply you are willing to face the parts of yourself that you were forced to silence. By how bravely you are willing to question everything the world taught you about pain, love, and worth. Because the world didn't just hurt you, it taught you to keep hurting yourself, to mistake endurance for virtue, to wear invisibility like a crown. But you were not born to live invisible. You were not born to carry wounds as a definition of who you are. Somewhere inside you, beneath the scars and the silence, there is still a presence untouched by all that pain, a core that has never been broken, only hidden. And now, at the edge of exhaustion, you are being called, not to survive better, but to awaken, to remember. Because healing does not begin when the world stops hurting you. It begins when you stop allowing the wounds to define you. It begins when you realize nothing and nobody can truly hurt you anymore, unless you let them. Somewhere along the way, you confused your pain with your identity. You began to see yourself not as someone who endured suffering, but as someone shaped entirely by it. You wore your scars like badges. You spoke about your hurt as if it were your name. And yet deep down, something always felt off. Something inside you whispered that the story you were telling yourself, the story of being broken, being fragile, being irreparably wounded, was not the whole truth, because it isn't. You are not your wound. The pain you lived through, the betrayals, the losses, the silences, they happened to you. They left marks, but they are not you. You are what survived them. You are what grew in the ashes they tried to leave behind. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And this is where the rupture begins. You are not obligated to carry your suffering as a flag. You are not required to live as a monument to what others did to you. You are allowed, you are commanded to be something more. But to do that, you must tear away the lie that suffering is your destiny. You must see clearly, pain is not who you are. Pain is what you survived. This difference is not small. It changes everything. Because when you see yourself as your wound, you remain trapped in cycles of hurt, repeating patterns, attracting mirrors of your old injuries, reenacting the same dramas under different faces. But when you separate yourself from the wound, you reclaim power over your story. You stop being a character lost in someone else's tragedy. You become the author of your own liberation. This is not denial. You are not pretending the pain didn't happen. You are recognizing that it does not have the final word. The final word is yours. It always was. And it can be anything you choose. Silence, freedom, strength, presence. The wound will still exist. It will be a scar, a reminder, but not a cage. You are not the pain that was inflicted upon you. You are the soul that refused to die from it. And from that refusal, a new life begins, one where nothing and nobody will ever have the power to define you again. It is not enough to survive a wound. If you do not confront what the wound left inside you, it will continue to rule you, silently, invisibly, relentlessly. Carl Jung warned that the unconscious, the parts of ourselves we refuse to see, will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. Pain, unhealed and unexamined, does not simply disappear. It sinks into the depths of your being, becoming part of your shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is simply hidden. It contains all the parts of yourself you were taught to reject. Your anger, your grief, your fear, your power. And when pain is repressed into the shadow, it doesn't stay passive. It festers. It grows teeth. It finds ways to express itself, through sabotage, through cycles of destructive relationships, through the quiet repetition of old hurts. You think it's bad luck. You think it's the cruelty of others. But often it is simply your unhealed shadow, desperately trying to be seen. Nietzsche understood this too. He said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." But he didn't mean that survival alone is enough. Strength only comes when the survivor integrates what tried to destroy them. If you only endure, if you bury your pain without confronting it, you do not become stronger. You become more fragile. Because anything buried alive eventually demands to be heard. This is why you keep finding yourself in the same emotional traps, the same disrespect disguised as affection, the same abandonment cloaked as love, the same manipulations hidden behind promises. Your unhealed shadow seeks out mirrors. It recreates familiar pain, not because it enjoys suffering, but because it is begging for recognition. It wants to be brought into the light, into consciousness, into healing. But that requires courage. It requires standing face to face with the parts of yourself you most want to deny, the part that still believes you deserve to be hurt, the part that confuses neglect with love, the part that punishes itself for surviving. You cannot simply move on from wounds rooted in the shadow. You cannot outrun what lives inside you. You must turn inward. You must walk into the dark forest of your soul without a map, without guarantees, without anyone to hold your hand. And in that darkness, you must find the places where you are still bleeding, not to judge them, not to shame them, but to heal them. Healing the shadow does not mean erasing the pain. It means reclaiming the parts of you that pain tried to bury. It means saying, "Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was betrayed. Yes, I was abandoned. But none of that is the truth of who I am." It means taking back the pieces of yourself you were taught to disown. It means integrating your anger into courage, your grief into compassion, your fear into wisdom. Because the parts of you hidden in the shadow are not your enemies. They are your unfinished stories. They are your suppressed strengths. And when you bring them into the light, they become armor no one can penetrate. They become power no one can take. The ones who hurt you never truly had the power to define you. The only danger was in believing their version of you. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become through it. And now, standing here, aware of the shadow within you, you are faced with a choice. Continue the cycle of unconscious pain, or step into the sacred work of becoming whole. No one can make this choice for you. No apology from the past will heal you. No revenge will complete you. Only you, with your silence, your courage, your unwavering presence, can choose to end the tyranny of old wounds. And when you do, something shifts. The pain loses its claws, the past loses its power. The shadows no longer haunt you, they become part of you, integrated, respected, transmuted. And in that alchemy, you rise, not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as someone who can finally say without fear, without apology, "Nothing and nobody will ever hurt me again." Because you have claimed the only place no one can ever touch without your permission, yourself. There comes a moment on the journey inward when the walls fall away, and you are left alone with the most devastating truth. No one is hurting you now, except yourself. It's easier to blame the past. Easier to point to the betrayals, the abandonments, the cruelty. Easier to stay in the story where others are the villains and you are the eternal casualty. But survival demands something more ruthless. It demands that you stop looking outward. It demands that you turn the gaze inward and face the ways you continue to wound yourself. Every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you silence your needs, every time you shrink to avoid discomfort, every time you abandon your truth for the illusion of belonging, it is you. It is your fear. It is your old conditioning. It is your shadow reaching out and pulling you back into familiar suffering. The world may have taught you how to betray yourself, but it no longer has to hold your hand while you do it. The enemy now is not out there. It is the part of you that still believes you must suffer to deserve love. It is the part of you that still thinks being invisible is safer than being real. It is the part of you that is terrified of freedom, because freedom means standing alone, unapologetic, unashamed, sovereign. Carl Jung understood this brutal reckoning. He knew that the true battle is not against others. It is against the inherited patterns, the unconscious agreements, the silent contracts we signed with our own suffering. And the hardest part? No one is coming to save you from it. Not the one who hurt you. Not the one who ignored you. Not the one who left you. They cannot heal a wound they never truly saw. Only you can. Because now, every moment you stay in places that diminish you, every time you betray yourself to avoid discomfort, you are not a victim anymore. You are a participant. And this realization can shatter you, but it can also set you free. Because if you are the one hurting yourself now, then you are also the one who can stop. You are the one who can say, no more. No more silencing your voice to make others comfortable. No more shrinking your presence to fit into spaces too small for your soul. No more bleeding silently in the hope that someone will notice. You do not have to wait for permission to reclaim yourself. You do not have to wait for apology or recognition or justice. You are the justice. You are the closure. You are the end of the cycle. The same hands that learned to betray you can learn to protect you. The same voice that stayed silent can learn to roar with quiet authority. The same soul that endured abandonment can learn to stand alone without fear. But it requires a decision, a final, irrevocable decision, that you will no longer be your own executioner, that you will no longer be your own betrayer, that you will no longer hand yourself over to suffering disguised as loyalty or love or duty. It is a decision no one will see. No ceremony will mark it. No applause will follow it. It happens silently, inside you, in the dark. It happens the moment you stop making excuses for your pain, the moment you stop negotiating your worth, the moment you decide once and for all that nothing and nobody will ever have the right to hurt you again, because you will no longer hand them the knife. This is the brutal truth. The greatest betrayal you will ever endure is the one you inflict on yourself. And the greatest liberation you will ever experience is forgiving yourself for it and choosing a new way, choosing to stand, choosing to guard your soul like sacred fire, choosing to love yourself not because you are perfect, but because you are worthy, choosing silence over justification, choosing absence over self-betrayal, choosing solitude over submission, choosing life, your life, the one you were always meant to live. Whole, untouchable, free, because once you see this truth, you cannot unsee it. Once you claim this power, you cannot unknow it. And from that moment forward, every time someone tries to wound you, every time the old patterns try to whisper you back into submission, you will hear a different voice inside you. Calm, firm, unshakable. No, not anymore. And with that voice, you will walk into a life where hurt cannot find you anymore. Because you are no longer a target. You are a sovereign. You are a soul that knows nothing and nobody will ever hurt me again. unless I let them. And I won't. Not ever again. What if you could walk through the world and nothing could truly touch you? Not because you are numb, not because you are cold, but because you have become so deeply anchored in yourself that no external chaos can uproot your inner peace. This is not a fantasy. It is a reality, but it requires a different kind of strength. A strength that comes not from walls, but from roots. Becoming untouchable from within means building a foundation that cannot be shaken by rejection, misunderstanding, betrayal, or abandonment. It means understanding, at the deepest level, that no one has the power to validate or invalidate your existence. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole, not by perfecting yourself, but by integrating every part of yourself, even the parts once buried in shame or fear. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It is about returning, quietly, firmly, to your original center. And at that center, there is no wound to exploit. There is no emptiness to manipulate. There is no hunger to be filled by the approval of others. At that center, there is only presence, unapologetic, unbending, sacred. But how do you reach it? You start by withdrawing the permissions you have given for others to define your worth. You stop offering explanations for your needs. You stop apologizing for your silence. You stop diluting your truth to fit into places where it was never meant to belong. You begin to listen, fiercely, relentlessly, to the quiet voice inside you that says, "This is who I am." Not who you were trained to be, not who you pretended to be for survival, but who you have always been beneath the noise, and you honor that voice. You protect it the way you would protect something sacred, because it is. You no longer negotiate your boundaries in the face of guilt. You no longer betray your instincts to maintain connection. You no longer seek to be understood by those who refuse to see you. Instead, you stand, silently, completely, unshakably, and from that stance, everything changes. People who once drained you will fall away, confused and resentful. Situations that once trapped you will dissolve, powerless against your presence. Wounds that once reopened at every touch will heal so deeply that you forget they were ever bleeding. This is not arrogance. This is not withdrawal from life. This is mastery of life. Because you no longer enter the battlefield begging not to be hurt. You no longer hand your soul to strangers, asking them to treat it with care. You carry your soul yourself. And in doing so, you become sovereign. Sovereign souls do not need walls. They do not need to lash out or close themselves off from love. They simply know, I am whole, and nothing outside me can change that. This kind of untouchability does not isolate you. It liberates you. Because once you are no longer enslaved by the fear of being hurt, you can love without clinging. You can give without losing yourself. You can walk away without guilt. You can be fully present, not because you are safe, but because you are whole. And when you are whole, the world no longer holds weapons against you. They may misunderstand you. They may reject you. They may even try to wound you. But it won to reach the core of you. It won to shake the truth you now inhabit. Their storms may rage, their voices may rise, their judgments may fall like arrows, but you will remain unmoved, because you have built your life from the inside out, because you have become your own anchor, your own sanctuary, your own unwavering home. And from that home you can move through the world freely, fiercely, without fear. You can love without begging. You can lose without collapsing. You can be alone without feeling abandoned. You can exist, fully, gloriously, painfully alive, knowing that nothing and nobody can ever again reach into the sanctuary you have built within yourself, because you have claimed it, because you have defended it, because you have become it. And once you become it, you are untouchable. Not in the sense that you cannot feel, but in the sense that you can no longer be destroyed, You carry your own sky now, your own light, your own silence, and it is enough. It was always enough. There is a silence that does not come from absence. It is not the silence of emptiness or loneliness or defeat. It is the silence that rises when the battle inside you ends, when you no longer need to defend or explain or prove. It is the silence of wholeness. You will feel it not as a void, but as a fullness, dense, alive, unshakable. A silence that holds weight, a silence that radiates power. This silence is not born of shutting the world out. It is born of finally letting yourself in. It is the sound of no longer abandoning yourself. And within this silence, something miraculous happens. The world's noise loses its grip on you. The judgments, the rejections, the misunderstandings, the losses, they still exist, but they no longer penetrate. They swirl around you like distant storms, unable to breach the fortress of your being, because you have withdrawn your permission, because you have reclaimed the sacred right to inhabit yourself fully, because you no longer hand your soul to anyone, not for love, not for acceptance, not even for survival. You live from the inside out now, and from that inner sanctuary, nothing and nobody can touch you. They may try, they may rage, they may beg, but you will remain silent, steady, whole. Not because you are hardened, but because you are healed. Because the wounds that once controlled you have been seen, honored, integrated, and released. Because the shadow that once sabotaged you has been brought into the light and turned into strength. And now, standing in the vast stillness of your reclaimed soul, you understand the final truth. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again, because you have chosen yourself. Finally, completely, irrevocably. And that choice, silent, sacred, sovereign, will echo through every step you take from here forward. It will be your armor. It will be your compass. It will be your freedom. And in that freedom, in that silence, you will live, whole, seen, untouchable, exactly as you were always meant to.